Here in the United States, in the year 2022, parents are driving for hours to find the last remaining cans of baby formula. They're calling friends and family out of state for any signs of supply. Doctors are warning parents against diluting formula to make it last longer. So how did we get here? How did the richest country on earth find itself struggling to feed its babies? This headline from Fortune, it gets straight to the point. America is running out of baby formula because 3 companies control the market, and babies aren't that profitable. One of those companies, Abbott, controls about 43% of the market. And back in February, the FDA ordered Abbott to shut down its plant in Michigan after 4 infants were hospitalized and 2 died after drinking formula produced at the facility. Abbott then voluntarily recalled its baby formula from store shelves. The company says that its plant is not the source of the infections. Abbott has since reached an agreement with the FDA to reopen the facility. But the FDA was tipped off to problems at Abbott's plant earlier than February. In fact, 4 months before Abbott issued a recall. In October of last year, a former employee at the Abbott plant in Michigan flagged senior officials at the FDA of food safety violations. Politico obtained the whistleblower report alleging, quote, lax cleaning practices, purposely falsified records, and efforts by plant officials to keep the FDA from learning about serious issues related to the plant's own system for checking for bacteria in formula. So what did the FDA do in those 4 months when it was first tipped off to problems at Abbott's Michigan plant? Why did the FDA wait for 4 months for Abbott to issue a recall of its baby formula? This week, Congresswoman Rosa DeLauro grilled FDA Commissioner Robert Califf for some answers.
We need answers. We need them now. Who received this report? What did they do with it? Who was heading the FDA at that time?
Well, as I've said, you've got the timeline down and you've got the key issues. I know we have an oversight hearing next week, and we'll be prepared to go into much more detail at that point.
So you have no idea who received the documents?
Well, we do know.
At the agency. Who physically received the document? Where did it go? Who read it? What was the chain of command? You apparently don't have any answers to that question. That is indicative of, again, not responding to the seriousness of this issue.
But my ultimate question ends up being, how does a single recall at one plant for one company create such a massive shortage of baby formula all across the United States? How did our supply chain for something so critical and crucial as baby formula become so vulnerable? Joining me now is Matt Stoller. He's the Director of Research at the American Economic Liberties Project. He's also the author of the book, Goliath, the 100-year war between monopoly power and democracy. Matt, thanks for being here. I want to start with some more of Congresswoman DeLauro's exchange with the head of the FDA. Take a listen.
The most concerning charge is that the integrity of the organization was compromised. So once that integrity is compromised, then the question is, how can you trust any of the systems that are in place?
Mm-hmm. Well, in fact, and yet, whomever looked at that report felt that there was no need to respond at all from October to February until there was a recall. That is a dereliction of duty, in my view.
Matt, it seems like the FDA is pointing fingers at Abbott, while Congresswoman DeLauro is demanding answers from the FDA about why they were so slow to act, putting aside the punting of responsibility. Why did the FDA not act quickly enough to address the problems at Abbott's Michigan plant?
Well, I don't think we really know. I mean, one of the big problems that we have with our with these consolidated supply chains, and just to be clear, this is not just a baby formula issue. If you look at most of our generic pharmaceuticals or medical supplies, they have similar, they're highly regulated, the supply chains are concentrated, and the FDA is usually pretty slow. And oftentimes the companies themselves are very profitable and have political power. What the issue here is that Abbott is a $200 billion company and has a lot of political power. And my guess is that the FDA was probably trying to quietly deal with this problem, and Abbott was just saying, nah, we prefer to pay our dividends. We prefer to pay, have our stock buybacks, and kind of given the cold shoulder to the FDA. And the FDA, they feel generally powerlessness until finally in January or February, they said, we're shutting the factory down. And that caused, that caused a whole bunch of problems in distribution. And so now we're in this really bad situation because there's nobody who's in charge of making sure that there's adequate supply or that the prices are reasonable. And the three companies that control the market are very large. Baby formula is a small percentage of their actual business, and they don't really care if they deliver the baby formula. They only care if they can maintain their market power.
Yeah, but Matt, why couldn't the FDA spring to action the moment it decided to shut down a plant for the nation's largest manufacturer of infant formula? I mean, it would seem pretty obvious to me that shutting that down would have a huge impact on the market if the company that provides 43% of the baby formula in the United States is shut down.
Yeah, well, you're right about that. I suspect the FDA did have a plan of action. So one of the things that has happened, the White House and the FDA have both said this, is that there's more formula that's being produced right now than there was, in the last 4 weeks than there was in normal circumstances. So we don't actually lack for that much formula. In a lot of regions in the country, there is enough formula. The problem here is that the distribution is done via a weird system where the government effectively hands out state-based monopoly contracts, sole source contracts to individual companies, and Abbott controls about 34 states. And you can't really get alternative forms of baby formula into those states, or it's really hard to. So even if you have enough baby formula nationally, which we basically do, you can't get it into a bunch of the states that are Abbott states. So there's a distribution problem here. And my guess is that what happened with the FDA is they called up the other companies and said, hey, make sure that you have enough formula to go, right, to cover the shortfall, but they didn't think about the distribution problem through this USDA welfare program called the Women, Infant, and Children Program, or WIC.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up, Matt, because I was going to ask you, according to the CDC, the shortage is especially hitting disadvantaged communities because they rely heavily on formula. That program you just mentioned, WIC, that's a federal nutrition program for women, infants and children, thus the WIC, the WIC. That's run by the Department of Agriculture. That Department of Agriculture is the largest purchaser of infant formula in the United States. Nearly half of the women are getting their formula from WIC. But Matt, Congress just now passed a bill allowing the program to get formula from foreign suppliers. In your opinion, do you think those foreign imports are actually going to help solve the problem here? Or are we just going to hit the loggerhead again of that distribution issue you've been talking about?
I think that the issue is distribution. I mean, there is, we already do get formula made abroad. That just has to be made in FDA certified factories. And so this bill kind of loosens those rules a little bit. But the issue I don't think the issue is production at this point. Obviously, we probably do need to produce more. But the problem is more distribution. The USDA runs the program, but it runs it in conjunction with every state, right? So each state has their own contract with these companies, and they have their own rules. And the USDA said to every state, hey, we've loosened these. We encourage you to offer waivers. And some of the states have, and some of the states haven't. So you have this, it's a giant bureaucratic thicket, and you have three giant bureaucracies. You've got the USDA, you've got the FDA, and you've got Abbott, and then you've got 50 state bureaucracies. And we have to figure out what is going on, what are the decision points there, and in order to get this baby formula situation resolved. But it's important not to let Abbott off the hook here, because the fundamental driver of all of this is the CEO of Abbott, Robert Ford, just refused to actually take care of the equipment in his plants because it was less profitable to do that. And that is what matters here. That's what caused this whole situation.
Yeah, Matt, thank you for reminding the facts, because that's really important. But as you note, there is a bureaucracy, and the people that are suffering are the babies. So we appreciate you being here and kind of getting all the facts straight for us. So thank you so much.
Hey, thanks a lot.